Researching Peer Support by Harrison C. Bernstein. Hello! Welcome to my lecture on researching peer support for the benefit of support recipients. This class, we have researched qualitative research methods in preparation for a proposal for research, and this lecture will contain a literature review of the relevant studies and an explanation of the research question, outlining its importance. Peer support is defined as any kind of support provided by those with lived experience in recovery of mental health. There are three current forms of peer support as defined by Davidson et al. 1. Naturally occurring mutual support groups. 2. Consumer-run services. And 3. The employment of consumers as providers within clinical and rehabilitative settings. The research question at hand is a complex one and must be approached using a qualitative method which can understand such complexity. The question which will be proposed for research is, does the benefit received from providing support to others affect the quality of support given to those in need? The importance of this topic. In order to provide the highest quality care to those in need, the mechanics of counseling and peer support should be understood very well by the counseling and research communities. If there are factors which, once illuminated, could positively affect the provision of support, we should identify these and secure them. Benefit is gained from giving support as seen in the literature. The range of benefits that are shared include increased self-efficacy, decreased hospitalizations, gainful employment, and increased well-being. Now for a short review of the literature. For the literature review portion of this lecture, I have identified 3 different studies of which are quite relevant. The first is a paper by Repper and Carter. The other 2 were gained from looking at the references for this paper, which itself is a literature review. A number of different papers were obtained from Repper and Carter's reference list, as well as searches in the Ashford Library and Google Scholar. Only some met my criteria for inclusion in this research project. Repper and Carter have a number of important findings which were garnered from their in-depth review of 38 articles. They found that peer support can actually be more beneficial for the giver than the receiver. This is hypothesized to be because of the shift from consumer to provider. This necessitates the need for the present research. Why do peer supporters benefit so much from providing support, and does this interfere with the support given? More lit review. Sawyers et al. Used a grounded theory approach to the analysis of using a peer recovery coach on a services team, mixed with quantitative methods such as the use of assessments as well as semi-structured interviews. They found that the addition of a coach, in this case one with doctoral training, is a welcome addition to a provider team. Walker and Bryant conducted a qualitative metasynthesis of 27 published studies. A qualitative metasynthesis is the qualitative version of a quantitative meta-analysis. They have found that peers who provide service experience prejudice and discrimination, low pay, bad hours, and difficulty transitioning from consumer to provider. On the positive side, they found that collegial relationships with non-peer staff were formed. There was a notable increase of wellness secondary to working, and those who received services experienced increased social networks and wellness. Potential methods for research. There are many potential methods for research in this case. Potential methods that could be used to meet the goal of answering our research question include narrative analysis and discourse analysis, coding for positive and negative themes. For analysis, questions will be formed that are designed to have the interviewee tell their story of receiving support. Multiple independent coders will be used in order to increase reliability and decrease biases. Design choice rationale. People will be sampled in a non-random purposive method by contacting different agencies who serve those in questions. This means that those interviewed will be handpicked quite subjectively. Through a narrative analysis, we have a constructionist approach to tackling our research question. Also, because of the vague nature of narrative analysis, there's much flexibility to be had in order to answer a complex question. Setting up an interview and where the focus is on the interviewee, we are allowed to let the interviewee be as honest as they would like without imposing strict expectations on them by using pointed questions. Questions for the interviewee will be open-ended. Ethical guidelines, a discussion. Ethical issues will be guided by the checklist provided by Hess Biber from their section on ethical guidelines for qualitative research. What moral principles guide your research? How do ethical issues enter into your selection of a research problem? How do ethical issues affect your conduct, how you conduct your research, the design of your study, your sampling procedure, and so forth? What responsibility do you have toward your research participants? For example, do you have their informed consent to participate in your project? What ethical issues/dilemmas might come into play in deciding what research findings you publish? Will your research directly benefit those who participated in the study? For the first and second questions, moral principles such as fairness in treatment and concern for increased well-being will guide this research. As for the third question, the research is conducted with great sensitivity to personal stances on certain topics and awareness of cultural differences. For the last point, we have a responsibility to ensure progress made based on an objective point of view from the research perspective. Informed consent will be obtained, and all research that is deemed to be relevant should be published for the benefit of the community. Ethical standards per the APA Code of Ethics. Per the APA Code of Ethics and Conduct, research will be kept within the appropriate boundaries set for advertising, soliciting, informed consent, confidentiality, competency, and among others. As compensation for participation could be offered, there may be a possibility that subjects feel coerced into participating. This will be controlled for by offering a genuine and empathetic experience in the research project. In conclusion, steps will be taken to answer the question of how does mutual benefit affect the experience of receiving peer support as informed by the literature available on the subject of peer support. A narrative design will be utilized with a degree of interjudge reliability. Open-ended questions will be devised, and ethical guidelines will be implemented to ensure greatest benefit. In summary, we have identified certain factors of peer support, vowed to research with informed guidance, reviewed some relevant literature, described the use of narrative methodology for greatest flexibility in answering a complex question, and determined that we will utilize a constructionist approach to build rationale for possible theory, and we plan on following ethical guidelines. Here are my references. Thank you very much for participating in this discussion with me.